Hey, I'm Dr. Carter, and I want to start today's video with something that took me years in medicine to fully appreciate, and that changes everything about how you understand one of the most critical substances in your body. Most people think of vitamins as things you get from food, things your body can't make on its own, things that support health in small supplementary ways. Vitamin D does none of that, and after 50, the consequences of not understanding what it actually is and what it actually does can be measured in your bones, your brain, your heart, and your immune system, all at the same time. That's what this channel is for. The science your doctor doesn't always have time to explain, delivered clearly, accurately, and in a way you can actually use. Subscribe now and turn on the bell. New videos every week. What if the substance you've been taking as a supplement your whole life isn't a vitamin at all? What if it's a hormone, a full steroid hormone that controls over 200 genes in your body, regulates your immune system, protects your brain, supports your heart, maintains your muscle strength, and governs the health of nearly every tissue from head to toe? And what if, after 50, your body's ability to produce and activate this hormone drops so dramatically that most adults are running on critically low levels, without a single obvious symptom to warn them? That is the reality of vitamin D. And it is one of the most consequential health stories of the last 2 decades of medical research. Here is the number that should stop you. Vitamin D is the most commonly consumed individual supplement in the United States, and yet deficiency remains epidemic. Not because people aren't taking it, but because most people are taking the wrong form at the wrong dose without the cofactors the body needs to actually use it. Today I am going to show you what vitamin D actually is, why its absence after 50 silently destroys multiple systems simultaneously, the 8 signs that your levels are critically low right now, and the exact protocol that research supports for restoring them correctly. And sign number 6 is the one that surprises people most, because it connects vitamin D to something most adults over 50 are experiencing daily and attributing entirely to age. Stay until the end, because the final section will change how you think about this hormone for the rest of your life. Let's get into it. Before we get to the science, I need to establish what vitamin D actually is, because the moment you understand this, everything else in this video clicks into place. The name vitamin D is a historical accident. When it was discovered in the 1920s, researchers named it a vitamin because its deficiency caused rickets in children. The name stuck, but the science has moved far beyond that original classification, and what we now know about vitamin D places it firmly in a completely different biological category. Vitamin D is a steroid hormone. Here is how we know. True vitamins must come from the diet. The body cannot synthesize them independently. Vitamin D is produced by the skin when ultraviolet B radiation converts cholesterol into a precursor molecule. That process, manufacturing a biologically active compound from cholesterol, is the defining mechanism of steroid hormone synthesis. Testosterone, estrogen, and cortisol are all made the same way, but the reclassification goes deeper than synthesis. Once produced by the skin, vitamin D undergoes activation in the liver and then the kidneys, converting first to 25-hydroxyvitamin D and then to its fully active form, calcitriol. This multi-organ activation cascade is characteristic of hormones, not vitamins. And calcitriol, the active form, works exactly as a hormone does. It binds to vitamin D receptors, which exist in more than 36 different tissues throughout the body, including the brain, heart, pancreas, immune cells, muscles, and gut. Once bound, it enters the nucleus of cells and directly regulates the expression of more than 200 genes. No vitamin does that. Only hormones operate at that level of biological authority. Now here is why this matters so urgently after 50. Three things happen simultaneously as we age that devastate vitamin D hormone levels. The skin's capacity to synthesize vitamin D from sunlight drops by up to 75% between the ages of 20 and 70. The kidneys, which perform the final activation step, lose efficiency with age, producing less calcitriol even when precursor levels seem adequate. And the sex hormones that amplify vitamin D receptor sensitivity, estrogen and testosterone, decline sharply after 50, making the receptors less responsive even when vitamin D is present. The result is a triple deficiency mechanism that standard blood tests frequently miss, because most labs measure only 25-hydroxyvitamin D, not the active calcitriol form, and use reference ranges that were established decades ago and are now considered by many researchers to be far too low. This is why deficiency is so common after 50 and why its effects are so widespread. Here is what those effects look like. Sign number 1. Bone pain and increased fracture risk, even without osteoporosis diagnosis. Most people know that vitamin D is important for bone health, but most people dramatically underestimate the mechanism and miss the early signs as a result. Vitamin D hormone is the primary regulator of calcium and phosphorus absorption in the intestine. Without adequate calcitriol, the gut absorbs only 10 to 15% of dietary calcium, compared to 30 to 40% when vitamin D levels are optimal. The body compensates for low calcium absorption by increasing parathyroid hormone, which pulls calcium out of bone to maintain blood levels. The result is a slow, silent demineralization, bones losing density and structural integrity over months and years. The early sign is not fracture. The early sign is a deep, diffuse aching in the bones, particularly in the lower back, hips, and legs, that is different from muscle soreness or joint pain. It is a pressure-like discomfort that intensifies with touch on the bone itself. This sign is almost universally attributed to arthritis or normal aging. The vitamin D connection is rarely investigated until a fracture occurs. If you experience unexplained bone tenderness, particularly in the shins, ribs, or lower back, that has no clear orthopedic explanation, low vitamin D hormone is the first thing worth testing. The next sign affects something most adults over 50 struggle with daily. Sign number 2. Persistent muscle weakness, especially in the legs and core. Vitamin D receptors are present in skeletal muscle tissue throughout the body. When vitamin D hormone levels are low, muscle protein synthesis is impaired. Muscle fiber composition shifts away from the fast-twitch type 2 fibers responsible for strength and power, and the neuromuscular signaling that coordinates muscle contraction becomes less efficient. The practical result is a specific kind of weakness, not dramatic paralysis, but a progressive reduction in functional strength. Difficulty rising from a chair without using the arms. Climbing stairs that feel harder than they should, a general sense that the legs feel heavy and unreliable. Multiple clinical studies show a direct correlation between vitamin D deficiency and fall risk in adults over 65, and supplementation with adequate doses produces measurable improvements in muscle strength and balance within 8 to 12 weeks. If your leg strength has been declining in ways that feel disproportionate to your activity level, vitamin D hormone status deserves investigation as a contributing factor. Sign number 3. Immune system dysfunction, frequent infections and slow recovery. Vitamin D hormone is one of the most powerful modulators of immune function known to science. Every cell in the immune system, T cells, B cells, macrophages, natural killer cells, carries vitamin D receptors. Calcitriol directly regulates the production of antimicrobial proteins called defensins that form the body's first line of defense against bacterial and viral infection. When vitamin D levels are low, this entire immune architecture is compromised. The innate immune response becomes sluggish. The adaptive immune response becomes dysregulated, in some cases producing excessive inflammation rather than effective targeted defense. The clinical signs: catching every respiratory illness that circulates, infections that linger longer than they should, wound healing that is slower than expected. Research shows that populations with the lowest vitamin D levels have the highest rates of respiratory infections, and supplementation reduces infection frequency and severity, particularly in adults who were deficient at baseline. After 50, when immune function is already naturally declining through immunosenescence, low vitamin D removes one of the body's most important compensatory mechanisms. Sign number 4: depression, low mood, and seasonal emotional decline. The brain is rich in vitamin D receptors, particularly in the regions that govern mood regulation, including the prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, and hypothalamus. Calcitriol directly influences the synthesis of serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitters most associated with mood stability, motivation, and emotional resilience. When vitamin D hormone levels are low, serotonin synthesis drops. The neurochemical environment shifts toward the pattern associated with low mood, reduced motivation, and hedonia, the loss of pleasure in previously enjoyable activities, and in some cases, clinically significant depression. Multiple meta-analyses show consistent associations between low vitamin D levels and depressive symptoms in older adults, and several randomized controlled trials show improvement in mood scores following supplementation. If your emotional baseline has shifted, if joy feels less accessible, motivation has flattened, and the world seems grayer, and if this pattern is worse in winter or in periods of limited sun exposure, vitamin D hormone status is one of the most clinically relevant factors to investigate. Sign number 5: cardiovascular risk, high blood pressure, and arterial stiffness. Vitamin D receptors are present in heart muscle, arterial smooth muscle, and the endothelial cells that line blood vessel walls. Calcitriol directly suppresses the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, the primary hormonal pathway governing blood pressure regulation. When vitamin D is deficient, this suppression is removed. Renin production increases, blood pressure rises, and arterial walls become stiffer and less responsive. Multiple large epidemiological studies show that low vitamin D levels are independently associated with increased risk of hypertension, heart attack, stroke, and heart failure. Clinical trials show that correcting vitamin D deficiency produces measurable reductions in blood pressure and improvements in arterial compliance in hypertensive adults. The effect is consistent, and when combined with the other cardiovascular benefits of optimal vitamin D levels, the cumulative impact is clinically meaningful. If your blood pressure has been climbing despite lifestyle efforts, vitamin D hormone status deserves to be part of that clinical conversation. Sign number 6: cognitive decline and brain fog, the connection most doctors never mention. This is the sign that surprises people most, and it is one of the most important. The hippocampus, the brain's primary memory center, has one of the highest concentrations of vitamin D receptors in the entire central nervous system. Calcitriol in the brain acts as a neuroprotective agent. It reduces neuroinflammation, supports the clearance of amyloid beta plaques, protects neurons from oxidative damage, and supports the synthesis of neurotrophic factors including B, D, and F. When vitamin D hormone levels are chronically low, every one of these protective mechanisms is compromised simultaneously. Research published in the journal Neurology found that adults with severe vitamin D deficiency had a 122% higher risk of developing dementia and a 125% higher risk of developing Alzheimer's disease compared to those with sufficient levels. The practical early sign is the specific brain fog that worsens in winter, improves in summer, and feels different from stress-related mental fatigue, a slowing of processing speed, words that take longer to come, concentration that fragments more easily than it used to. If you are experiencing cognitive changes after 50 and you have not had your vitamin D levels tested recently, this is one of the most actionable things you can do. 2 more signs to go, and they affect something you do every single day. Sign number 7. Unexplained fatigue and low energy. Vitamin D hormone plays a direct role in mitochondrial function, the cellular energy production process that powers every tissue in the body. Vitamin D receptors in mitochondria influence the efficiency of ATP synthesis, the body's primary energy currency. When vitamin D levels are low, mitochondrial efficiency drops. The cells are working harder for less energy output. The result is that specific pervasive fatigue that sleep doesn't resolve, the kind that is present in the morning, worsens through the day and does not correlate with physical activity levels. This fatigue is frequently attributed to thyroid dysfunction, anemia, sleep disorders, or simply aging. Vitamin D status is rarely the first thing investigated, despite the fact that correction of deficiency consistently produces improvement in energy levels in multiple clinical trials. In adults over 50 presenting with chronic fatigue, vitamin D status deserves simultaneous evaluation alongside thyroid function and iron levels. Sign number 8. Poor sleep quality and disrupted circadian rhythm. Vitamin D receptors are present in the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master circadian clock, and in the areas governing sleep architecture. Calcitriol influences the production of melatonin and regulates the sleep-wake cycle at a neurochemical level. When vitamin D levels are low, sleep architecture is disrupted. The time to fall asleep lengthens. Deep slow-wave sleep is reduced. REM sleep becomes fragmented, and the circadian rhythm loses precision, producing that sensation of feeling alert when you should be sleeping and drowsy when you should be awake. Research shows a direct correlation between vitamin D deficiency and shorter sleep duration, poorer sleep quality, and higher rates of sleep disorders in adults over 50. And correcting deficiency produces measurable improvements in sleep quality within 4 to 8 weeks. Given the role of sleep in Alzheimer's prevention, cardiovascular health, immune function, and metabolic regulation, optimizing vitamin D hormone status is one of the highest leverage sleep interventions available, and one of the most overlooked. If you recognized 4 or more of these signs today, what comes next is exactly what you need. Now for the part that matters most, because most people are supplementing vitamin D incorrectly, and incorrect supplementation produces either no benefit or, in some cases, new problems. Here is the evidence-based protocol for adults over 50. First, get tested before you supplement and use the right test. Ask your doctor for a 25-hydroxyvitamin D test, also written as 25-OHD. This is the standard marker for vitamin D status. The reference range most labs use considers anything above 20 nanograms per milliliter as sufficient, but leading vitamin D researchers and the Endocrine Society recommend optimal levels of 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter for adults over 50. Know your baseline. Don't guess your dose. Second, vitamin D3, not D2, and the correct dose for your level. Vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, is the form the skin produces naturally and the form that raises blood levels most effectively. Vitamin D2, ergocalciferol, is significantly less potent and less stable. Most prescription vitamin D is D2, which is one reason many people supplement under medical supervision and still remain deficient. For adults over 50 who are deficient, below 30 nanograms per milliliter, research supports doses of 4,000 to 5,000 IU daily to restore levels efficiently. For maintenance, once optimal levels are achieved, 2,000 to 3,000 IU daily. Third, take vitamin D3 with vitamin K2. This combination is non-negotiable. Vitamin D3 increases calcium absorption. Vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form, directs that calcium into the bones where it belongs and away from the arteries where it causes harm. Taking high-dose vitamin D3 without K2 can over time contribute to arterial calcification. 100 to 200 micrograms of MK7 alongside your vitamin D3 dose. Fourth, take vitamin D3 with magnesium. Magnesium is required for the enzymatic conversion of vitamin D into its active form. Without adequate magnesium, supplemented vitamin D cannot be fully activated. Research published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition shows that magnesium supplementation significantly increases the conversion of vitamin D to its active form. If you are supplementing vitamin D without magnesium, you are leaving a significant portion of your supplementation effect on the table. Fifth, take vitamin D3 with the largest meal of the day. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble hormone. It is absorbed significantly better when taken with dietary fat. Taking it with your largest meal, which typically contains the most fat, maximizes absorption and ensures consistent blood level maintenance. Sixth, retest after 90 days. Vitamin D levels respond to supplementation over a period of 8 to 12 weeks. After 90 days of consistent supplementation at your corrective dose, retest your 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels. Adjust the dose based on the result. This iterative approach, test, supplement, retest, is the only way to know you have achieved optimal levels rather than just supplementing blindly. Important note: if you have kidney disease, hyperparathyroidism, sarcoidosis, or a history of kidney stones, vitamin D supplementation requires medical supervision. These conditions affect calcium metabolism in ways that can make higher dose supplementation inappropriate without monitoring. Today you learned something that fundamentally changes how you understand one of the most important substances in your body. Vitamin D is not a vitamin. It is a steroid hormone that governs more than 200 genes across 36 tissues. And after 50, your body's ability to produce, activate, and utilize it is compromised by 3 simultaneous biological mechanisms that most standard blood tests fail to detect. You saw the 8 signs of deficiency, from the bone pain and muscle weakness that most people attribute to arthritis, to the brain fog and cognitive decline in sign number 6 that connects directly to Alzheimer's risk, to the sleep disruption in sign number 8 that undermines every other health intervention you are making. And you saw the exact protocol that research supports: D3, not D2, with K2 and magnesium, with food at the right dose, confirmed by testing. This is not a marginal supplement decision. Vitamin D hormone status after 50 touches every major system in your body simultaneously. Getting it right is not a luxury, it is a foundation. If this video changed how you think about vitamin D, please hit the like button. It helps this channel grow and reach more people who need this information. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next videos. Share this with someone over 50 you care about, especially someone who is supplementing vitamin D without K2 and magnesium. You might be preventing real harm, and leave a comment right now. Tell me, have you had your vitamin D levels tested recently? And were you aware that it functions as a hormone, not a vitamin? I read every comment personally, and your question could become our next video. I'm Dr. Carter, I'm here, and I'll see you in the next video.